Hey everybody, welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and downright notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out our introduction video. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. It gives a good explanation of how the Horror Movie Syllabus works. But in short, we look at a particular subgenre of horror and pick three representative examples of that subgenre to examine. And today, our subgenre is giant monsters. Now, giant monster movies are fun. Just let's get that out of the way right now. There's not really any such thing as a giant monster movie that's not trying to have some fun. I dare say you'd be challenged to pick out a monster movie, a giant monster movie that is a downer, that is maudlin or depressing. You're just not going to find it, and that's why I'm kind of amped for today's subgenre because I like giant monsters. These are fun movies. And it's not just me who shares this view. They are very, very popular movies. And I think that popularity goes back to all the way to the 1930s with the first King Kong movie, which is obviously out of scope for the horror movie syllabus because it's pre 1970. But these movies have been around for a long time. They've been accepted and appreciated and enjoyed for a very, very long time. So it's no secret that giant monster movies are popular. But why is that? What is it that makes them tick? Um, I would argue that it's not really as formulaic as you might think. It's not necessarily just make a giant monster and put it in there and everybody falls in love. Not at all. I think that there is the right balance of human pathos or human emotion and the giant monster threat, along with some requisite destruction. All those things have to be in the right mix and the right balance for it to be a successful giant monster movie that wins over the hearts of its viewers. And I think that the movies that we're going to talk about today can illustrate this, can illustrate that what it really is finding the right balance of ingredients to make that giant monster movie exceptional. And those ingredients aren't always the same from movie to movie. I would say that different movies have different recipes that work. What do I mean? What am I talking about? Well, why don't we go ahead and get into this and let's find out. As usual, we've categorized our three movies in undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate levels. And those levels are going to indicate the level in which I like these movies the most. But I want to be clear, I like all of these movies a lot. So we're splitting hairs in putting them in order. I have put them in order because this would be, postgraduate being the movie I like the most here. But man, I like all these movies a lot. So let's just jump right into them. The first movie we're talking about today, our undergraduate level movie, is Tremors. Now, Tremors came out in 1990 and it is a cult favorite. And I mean a big cult favorite. People love this movie and this movie series. The series is, I think, seven deep now. You'll note that what I just held up was the Tremors complete collection, but it's not even complete anymore. And I just got that not too long ago. They've already added another movie. That's because the popularity of the series endures. Now, if you're not familiar with the movie Tremors, it takes place in the middle of the desert in a place called Perfection. It's like town in the middle of nowhere with a very small population. And it mostly follows these two guys who are trying to leave the town and they come across a giant sandworm. And that's not really a spoiler to tell you that because it's on all the posters and everything like that. But this giant sandworm that terrorizes the town. And this cast of characters, these colorful locals who have to fight back to save their town. It's a lot of fun. It's a campy film, but it toes the campy line very, very well. Now, recently I just did a video about the Leprechaun series and how back in the day I didn't really appreciate camp humor in my horror movies and how I've evolved past that. Tremors is another example of one that would actually fall into this category. When it first came out, I was ambivalent at best about it. Really not interested about it. It took a little while for me to come around to the joy that is Tremors and the the really precarious blend of goofy comedy and horror in here. The horror is light in the movie. It's not particularly scary, other than some tension and maybe a little bit of gore. Um, there's some fun creature effects. That's really what you get in there, and I think that's what I'm talking about when I say that their recipe or their blend for this movie is really unique because it's got a certain tone to it that is really just carried by this cast of characters that is really wacky and interesting and unique, and then a rather unique monster that is, I say sandworm, and that is really kind of simplifying what it is. And if you are a fan of the series and you've seen all the movies, you know what I'm talking about. There's a evolution and variation to this beast or beasts that is really unique and interesting. And I think that that's also part of it, and the design of the creature. Put all these things together in just the right mix, and it becomes a cult classic. It becomes a very fun, crowd pleasing movie that is 100% worth your time. And I would dare say, unlike other things that you've seen before. Now, the first movie stars Kevin Bacon, which lends itself a certain particular charm. Because Kevin Bacon is a good actor, and he's just hamming it up in this movie. He's a lot of fun. And also because, he's got to start with Friday the 13th. And so seeing Kevin Bacon return to horror roots is always kind of nice. It also stars Fred Ward and Michael Gross. And Michael Gross is noteworthy because in the first movie, he is a side character. He's a supporting character. He's a scene stealer. And going forward, he becomes the focus of the series because Kevin Bacon is Kevin Bacon and decided he wasn't, I don't know, is he too good to come back for the series? Maybe, I don't know. That's the debate for another time. But Kevin Bacon didn't come back. Michael Gross has stayed with the series throughout the rest of it. And he has an affection for the series, and it shows in his performances. And people love the series, and I think a big piece of that is because of Michael Gross. He gives it a certain, I don't want to say gravitas because that's not at all what I mean. I mean, he's a good actor and he's hamming it up here, but he's also working. He's not phoning it in. He cares about the performance. And I think that shines through, and it kind of in a weird way grounds the series by having an actor who is talented give a performance that is an actual performance, but also is also kind of goofy and over the top and campy. Not an easy feat to find. Again, it's towing a line. It's really precariously balanced, and Michael Gross is one of the people, or if not the main person, keeping that series balanced on this point of comedic, funny, actiony, entertaining. It all kind of comes together. Now, are all the sequels good? No. Now, I haven't even seen all of them. The newest one, for example, I haven't seen yet. They vary in quality, but they're all fun. There's none of them that you're gonna just have a bad time or be offended by. Some of them might be less interesting to you. You might get a little bored on some of them, but overall, I think you're gonna have a good time. If you like the first one, I think you have a good chance of enjoying the subsequent ones. If you don't like the first one, don't waste your time with the rest of them. It's not for you. But I think that if you can get in the spirit of the first movie, if you can appreciate that blend of camp humor, quirky characters, gross monsters, and action and comedy, I think that you're going to have a good time. And many have. Like I said, this movie has 7 entries. It keeps going. And that's indicative of its popularity. It wouldn't keep going if there wasn't a market for it. Now, granted, it's straight to video market. I think only the first 2, maybe the first 2 or 3 were theatrical, and then the rest of it straight to video. But I'm a big fan of feeling like straight to video by itself does not necessarily indicate poor quality. And I think Tremors is a case of that. It is direct to video quality, so the budget is commensurate with that. So you have to kind of grade on a curve and recognize that it doesn't have the budget to do the same kind of theatrical spectacle. But given their budget limitations, they do a lot with what they have. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of low budget horror, do-it-yourself type horror, and just making a good movie by sheer will and hard work. And I feel like that's what the Tremors series exemplifies. Giving the fans something fun and enjoyable, giving us a good ride on a budget simply by busting their butts and trying hard and giving a damn, frankly. That's the thing I think that comes through the most in these movies. A lot of direct-to-video movies, a lot of sequel movies, franchises are by and large phoning it in, cash grabs. The Tremors movies, it feels like they're doing it because they love it, because they actually have affection for the franchise. So they're aligned with the fans who enjoy it. And I just think that's neat. I think it's great that there's a series out there that cares about the fans and cares about the series, cares about the mythology, cares about the characters. I think that if you're a fan of the series, you get rewarded for your fandom, for your appreciation, for your devotion to the series. And that's awesome. And I think that's worth noting. I think that's worth appreciating. And it's a big part of why the movie is on the syllabus. The movie is on the syllabus partly because it's a big cult favorite, partly because it's a great movie, and partly because the series deserves to be recognized as such a devoted and satisfying series for fans. So if you haven't checked out Tremors, obviously start with the first one. There is pretty decent continuity in there, so start from the beginning and work your way through it if you like them. Again, if you don't waste your time. But if you have never seen it before, at least check out the first one, and you'll know if you like it from the get-go. Although I would say, if it's not really for you, if you don't quite get the blend of the humor and the horror, maybe give it a couple years and try again. If you saw my last video of the Leprechaun series, you understand what I'm talking about. But I wasn't super into it at the first time, but I've come around to really appreciate it, and I am not alone. And if you like it, you're not alone either. But by all means, I invite you to share your opinions on Tremors in the comments below. I'm looking forward to hear what you guys have to say. But yeah, Tremors, great series. Check it out if you haven't. Next movie that we're talking about today, our graduate level movie, it's Cloverfield. Now, Cloverfield came out in 2008, and you guys knew we'd come to this one eventually because it's very well known and very noteworthy for a number of reasons. And I do like this movie quite a bit. But talking about the movie and talking about the franchise and everything around the movie are two different things, and we're going to do a little bit of both. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with Cloverfield, in short, it's basically about an alien creature that comes and trashes New York City. But the whole gimmick is that it's shot found footage style. So we're seeing this attack from the ground from people who are being impacted by the violence and the destruction. Neat idea, neat concept, especially back in 2008. This is a fairly fresh idea. Obviously, in the years since, it's kind of been a little played out, but at the time, this is a fresh idea. It's also worth noting that when the movie comes out, it was wrapped in secrecy. The poster was the Statue of Liberty with its head ripped off, and no explanation as to why. The trailer showed the Statue of Liberty's head bouncing down the street from a found footage camera. Cool marketing campaign, really great, shrouded in mystery. What the heck was it? What was going on? People wanted to know. It drove us into a frenzy. So you can bet I was there opening weekend to check this movie out. And it didn't disappoint. It felt fresh. It felt fun. Interesting thing. As you know, if you watched my found footage video, I'm a big fan of the Blair Witch Project. And a lot of people have complained about the Blair Witch giving them motion sickness. I never had that problem. And generally speaking, with found footage movies, never had that problem. And Blair Witch, admittedly, very, very shaky, early found footage. So they really didn't know to keep the camera a little bit more steady. Really, really rough. But I had no problems. Cloverfield, I did. When I went to go see Cloverfield in the theater, the shaky camera of the found footage really threw me for a loop, gave me the motion sickness pretty good. I was able to stick through the movie okay, but I wasn't feeling great by the end of it. And then for like a good 3 hours after, I came home and sat on the couch. I just kind of laid down for a while, for a good 3 hours before I started feeling like normal again. It was not a great experience. The sickness. The movie was a great experience. The sickness, not so much. So I bring that up only because if you are somebody who is sensitive to motion sickness, this one might be a bit of an issue. And if you're not sensitive to motion sickness like me, could still be an issue. So I wanted to mention that because it was an interesting experience. And in the back of my head, I always have that in my mind. You know, if I'm going to watch Cloverfield, maybe don't watch it in the dark because that motion sickness was a bit rough. So something to think about. But the movie itself is really well made. It does a little bit of the found footage trope, which again at the time maybe not as much of a trope, but of trying to set up some characters that ultimately you're not going to care that much about, and trying to create some drama for them. But it doesn't take too long before stuff starts happening. Before that head of the Statue of Liberty starts bouncing down the street. That happens pretty quickly. And from there, it's going pretty great. And the movie does a really good job of being a tease and giving you the glimpses of the monster and glimpses of the destruction and letting your mind work on that. And I'm a big fan of that, of letting your mind fill in the blanks. And whatever's in your mind is almost always going to be scarier than what they put on the screen. So I'm a big fan of that, hiding the ball and letting the mystery and the intrigue and the suspense do its job. It started all the way back with Jaws back in the day. We'll be talking about that sometime in the near future. That not showing the creature or not showing too much of the creature, at least till the end, is a very effective way to scare us. And this movie does show the monster towards the end. It will give you a payoff. And the monster is pretty cool to the point where I almost kind of wish you did get to see a little bit more of it because it's a good design. It really is pretty cool, pretty effective. But overall, I think the movie's tension and dread work really well by just giving you the glimpses, giving you the tastes of it. Probably a budgetary decision more than anything, but a very good one. Happy accident if that's the case. Very good decision. Works really, really well in the movie. Now, the movie was produced by J.J. Abrams. It was not directed by him. A lot of people think that it was directed by him, but it wasn't. But it was produced by him, and his name was all over the marketing. And his name was in the marketing because he was already a name at that point. And it does have a lot of the J.J. Signatures to it. Not the movie itself so much as the marketing campaign around it. J.J. loves a good mystery box. He likes to tease an audience with a good mystery. Debate about whether or not he satisfyingly pays off those mysteries. That's a whole other video, I suppose. But in this movie, I think the payoff works fairly well. If you're looking for a lot of deep answers about, what happened, where it came from, and all that kind of stuff, you aren't going to get that here. So in that sense, maybe it won't be so satisfying. But in terms of seeing the monster and getting some good thrills and getting a good ride out of it and kind of setting up potential franchise, things like that. I think all that's here. That said, franchise. The Cloverfield movie has become a Cloverfield franchise, sort of. There have been so far 2 Cloverfield movies in the franchise. I wouldn't call them sequels because they kind of are related to this movie, kind of not. Again, I don't like to spoil things too much, and I don't want to spoil these movies. But they are in the Cloverfield universe, but they're not exactly sequels to this movie or even prequels to this movie exactly. The first one that came out was 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is an excellent movie. Dare say I might even like 10 Cloverfield Lane better than Cloverfield. That movie's really good with John Goodwin and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but I gotta admit she's great in this movie. And that movie's about people in a bunker who are trying to avoid an unseen threat. And if you realize it's connected to Cloverfield, you kind of have an idea what that threat's supposed to be. But that movie's all about tension and stress of being locked together and cooped in with people who may not be stable. Fantastic film. But yeah, only tangentially related to Cloverfield. And then the latest one, Cloverfield Paradox, is more of a sci-fi movie. And it was released on Netflix. And I'll be honest with you, man, that movie it was a slog. I could barely get through it, but it's an ambitious movie in what it tries to do from the narrative perspective in terms of tying movies together. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't know that that's really a surprise or not. I think it kind of is. So we'll stop there on that one. But that one, mixed results from people, mixed reviews. And I'm not a huge fan of that one. I hear there's another Cloverfield movie coming out soon that is more of a direct sequel. And I'll be anxious to see that one because I really enjoyed this first movie. From a giant monster perspective, it is a lot of fun. It's not like Tremors where it's trying to camp it up or play it campy or anything like that. It's just big monster destroying New York from the perspective of the people on the ground. That's a lot of fun. The effects look very realistic because they're in that found footage style, and it really is a believable experience in that regard. So I know I find this to be a very fun movie, notwithstanding the motion sickness, and I think a lot of other people do. I think Cloverfield's got its fans. It's pretty popular. So if you haven't seen it, I would check it out. Again, motion sickness warning, but check it out if you haven't seen it, and if you like it, check out the other ones. But even if you don't like Cloverfield or didn't like Cloverfield, if you haven't seen 10 Cloverfield Lane, check that one out. That one I'll give you a high recommend for that one. That one I like quite a bit. But Cloverfield franchise, pretty interesting. The original movie, a lot of fun. 10 Cloverfield Lane, excellent. Cloverfield Paradox, take it or leave it. But that's my verdict on the Cloverfield franchise. But if you're new to it, it's worth at least checking out the first one and the second one for sure. The last movie that we're talking about today, our postgraduate level film, is The Host. The Host is a Korean giant monster film from 2007, or at least that's when it was released in the US. And it is fantastic. I absolutely love The Host. And it's not the kind of movie that I was expecting to love so much, but I did. I had heard about it when it came out. People were talking about it, had a lot of buzz amongst horror fans. And I was like, well, I'll give it a chance because, people are talking about it, even though I'm not too sure. Man, am I glad I did. Because the movie is so much fun. And part of why I think it's so much fun is because it's a Korean film. And I don't want to get into this too much because we've got a video on Korean horror coming up in the near future, and I'll go into this in more detail. But essentially, Korean films seem to blend genres really, really well. We talked at the beginning of this video about the blending of horror, comedy, creature features, human emotion or drama, and the right mix creates a really good giant monster movie. The Host has its own blend of this, its own recipe of this. Call it Korean cooking. I don't know, but it's delicious, whatever it is. The movie is basically, a giant monster that gets unleashed and terrorizes the town, and the government's trying to deal with it, and this family in particular trying to survive the giant monster attack and find out what's going on. And it's fantastic. It's really, really funny. The characters, the family are incredibly likable. And mind you, this is a movie in Korean, and I've seen it in subtitles. I suppose maybe there's a dub version, but it doesn't matter. See it with the subtitles because you want to appreciate these performances. These performances, even though I don't speak Korean, I don't know anything about the language, the performances shine through. Now, of course, I need the dialogue to be spelled out for me in English, but and the jokes to be explained to me. But their performances are so great that even in another language, they're conveying the emotions. They're conveying the drama and the comedy and the horror very, very well. And I absolutely love it. The creature is really, really interesting looking. He's really unique looking. I don't know if it's he. He or it is really, really unique design. It's a very bizarre design, at least from an American perspective. Maybe it's something a little bit more common in Korea, but it's like this bulbish fish looking thing. And I don't want to describe it too much because I want you to see it, but it's really cool looking. The CGI for it is not bad, but it's not amazing. We're not talking Gollum from Lord of the Rings here. It's fine. It's not going to take you out of the movie, but it's not 100% like photoreal looking. Even when I first saw it, it wasn't the most amazing CGI, but by no means did it take me out of the film or anything like that. And then the whole subplots with the government and everything like that, everything works really, really well. Again, this movie is tying together comedy, family drama, a government intrigue, and straight up monster horror. And it's balanced and blended so perfectly well. That's the thing about Korean movies, Korean horror movies, is like they almost defy categorization. Again, I'll go over this more when we talk Korean horror, but there's such a blend of various genres and various sources that they become their own thing that can only be described as Korean. And I'm a big fan of these movies, as you'll see when we talk about the Korean horror. And it's worth noting that The Host doesn't make the Korean horror video. I'm putting it here in this subgenre because A, that's how much I like it. It's one of my favorite giant monster movies. And B, that's how good the Korean horror subgenre is I've got plenty of other movies to talk about in that other video. So I can't praise The Host enough. I really, really love it. I love the performances. I love the direction. I love the and the direction. We didn't even talk about this. It's Bong Joon-ho. You might know him from the as the best director last year from Parasite. The guy is amazing, and this is an earlier work of his. And is it as good as Parasite? Is it as good, well directed as that? No, but it's still fantastic. So yeah, the movie, the creature design, the performances, the look of the film, the direction, the comedy, the script, everything is working for me so good in this movie. If you're a fan of giant monster movies, if you're a fan of horror comedy, if you're a fan of monsters, um, you got to get in on this movie if you haven't seen it already. If you like foreign films, if you like the Korean films, you got to see this movie. If you just like good horror movies, you got to see this movie. There's really nobody who shouldn't check this out. I'm not saying it's gonna be great for everybody. I respect that not everybody has the same taste, and your mileage may vary on this one. Um, but man, I'm effusive in my praise because I genuinely love this movie. I think it's a blast. I really hope that you check it out if you haven't seen it. And if you have, tell us what you think in the comments below, especially if you like it. The more people that are, vouching for this movie or rooting for this movie or supporting this movie, the better. It might be more easy to convince somebody who maybe doesn't like subtitles or something like that to check this movie out if they see how effusive other people are about it. If you're not interested in this movie, if you're not into it, if you saw it and you were kind of mad about it or didn't like it, let us know in the comments below what it was about you that missed the mark. I'd be curious to hear what you say about that. Obviously, I'm not going to be in agreement on you over that, but it doesn't mean I don't respect your opinion. And I'd like to hear what about it for you fell short. Because you might have an interesting perspective that I haven't considered before. So, by all means, leave your comments below on your thoughts of the host because I do love the movie and I'd love to hear what other people think about it. So that's all we've got today for our giant monster selections for the horror movie syllabus, but we do have a few extra credit films in case you like the subgenre, and I have a feeling you do. Now, the first movie we're going to talk about as extra credit is Super 8, which is another J.J. Abrams movie. This time, though, he did direct it. And this movie is good. I actually like this movie quite a bit, but it's impossible to talk about this movie without talking about the comparisons to E.T. This movie seems like a Steven Spielberg movie. And I'm pretty sure that that's by design. I'm pretty sure this is J.J. Abrams doing his Spielberg homage. And that's not a bad thing. Steven Spielberg's incredible. E.T. is incredible. This movie, it doesn't have the charm of E.T., and I'm okay with that. It lends itself a little bit more to horror than it does to the wonder of E.T. E.T. more of a family film, Super 8 maybe less so. But I don't want to oversell it. It's not super scary or anything like that. But like ET has a bunch of kids coming across, in this case a monster. I won't spoil it too much because JJ loves his mysteries, and Super 8 was again another movie shrouded in mystery. And I do think that marketing benefits this movie, letting that story unfold naturally. But you will see the Amblin style ET aspects to it. The comparisons are impossible to ignore. And ET is a legendary movie, so Super 8 suffers from the comparison because of that, but it shouldn't. Because the movie on its own is a good movie. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, I didn't put it on the syllabus because I don't think it's that level. Like, it's a must see. Nor do I think it had the same kind of impact that, say, Cloverfield had. But it's definitely one that if you like giant monsters and if you like, if you like monsters and if you like JJ, if you like Steven Spielberg, these definitely a movie you would enjoy. And it's also one that I think younger fans could get behind too. It's not so scary that the younger ones couldn't enjoy it and not be too traumatized by. So, not a bad starter horror movie, if you will. So, Super 8. If you haven't seen it, give it a chance. Give it a watch. I think you'll enjoy it. The next movie that I want to mention is a movie called Monsters. And this is a little indie film directed by Gareth Edwards. And you might recognize his name. He, for example, directed the Rogue One movie for the Star Wars franchise. And he directed another movie, but more on that in a second. Gareth Edwards did a great job with this movie. This movie, if you've never heard of it, is a movie about a photographer and his boss's daughter being stuck in Mexico in a world where aliens have crash landed on Earth and have taken over the border between the U.S. and Mexico, and it's become like this restricted area that you can't get through because of these monsters. And he's got to find a way to get her back into America. And the reason why this movie is so interesting is because the budget is very, very low. So Gareth Edwards is doing kind of what we were talking about before with Cloverfield. He's trying to do a lot with very little money and use suspense and what you don't see as part of the tension and scare. And he does it very, very effectively. Now, the movie is a slow burn. If you haven't seen it and you're thinking about checking it out, be aware of this. It's a little bit slow. It takes a little while to get going. But once you get them in their predicament where they're stuck in Mexico and they have to try to figure out how to cross this zone, that's where the movie really starts to click in. And the parts where they're trying to find ways across this zone and trying to avoid these monsters, the tension that's built up and the sense of dread is very palpable. If you're the kind of person like me who it's a little bit wary of things like traveling or getting lost or getting stuck in places, this movie might hit for you really, really well. It's part of why I like it, is because just that aspect alone is unsettling. You know, maybe you don't speak the language, or you don't have what you need to have, or you're not sure you can trust the people that you need to trust in order to get you to where you need to be. Those things alone are kind of dreadful for me and maybe to a lot of other people. And then you add the aspect of this unseen monster or monsters out there and seeing kind of the results of some of their actions. It's really, really effective. Now, it does do some showing of the monsters, and it does so pretty well. Again, low budget, but it makes the most of the budget. It really has a good look to it, and the monsters have a pretty cool design. Not the most unique design in the world. If you've seen some other things like World of Worlds, for example, you might recognize that design. It's not the most unique design in the world, but it's pretty cool looking and it's pretty effective. The movie, though, hinges on the performances of the two leads, and that's where I'll say it's hit and miss. I don't think they're bad by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a romance angle to this movie that maybe overshadows the horror a little bit, and a little bit to the detriment of the movie. And it's not bad, and I do think it's fairly effective. And it's not that they don't have chemistry. I think they do. It's just that it's not the most interesting part of the movie, and it's given a little bit of the center stage, a little bit too much for my liking. But that really is kind of a nit. It's not detrimental to the movie. It doesn't derail the movie. However, if you're going in there looking to be just totally nail-bitingly scared, you're gonna be disappointed because of that love story aspect to it, and because the monsters are kind of in the background. Again, by design, by necessity for the budget, but also by a little bit disappointing because of that. So if you go in with the right expectations of knowing that this movie is just kind of a slow burn tension movie, and if you also kind of go in knowing that the budget is low and kind of just trying to go appreciate what a talented filmmaker can do with very little money and just a lot of talent, I think you're much more likely to embrace and enjoy the movie. So those are my caveats for the movie. I really like the movie. I think it's a good time, but maybe not for everybody. Not everybody will feel it. If you have a short attention span, or if you're impatient, or if you really want to be jumping out of your seat, this movie's probably not going to pay off for you. So be aware of that. But if you're feeling open-minded about it, or if you like this kind of movie, give it a chance. I think you'll like it. I do stand by it as a pretty good movie. I really enjoy it. So, and if you do give it a chance, let me know what you think. And the last extra credit movie I want to mention is Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, which came out a few years ago. And the reason why I'm mentioning Godzilla here and not putting it in the syllabus is because it really leans heavily more towards an action flick than it does a horror flick. Even though it's a giant monster attacking, the way this movie is made and marketed, it's really more action than it is horror. So it misses the syllabus, but I can't not mention it here. A, because it is literally like the king of the giant monsters. I mean, it's Godzilla, come on. B, because I like Godzilla a lot. And C, because it's a really, really good movie. Again, Gareth Edwards is an excellent director. If you haven't seen Rogue One, by the way, check that out too. But he does a great job here. Now, I know a lot of people complained about this movie because it didn't show the monster enough. Like, they wanted more monster action. Fair point. If you've seen Monsters, you kind of know what he's doing, though. Even though he's got the budget to show Godzilla, he's going to try to set up the human drama. He's going to kind of tease you with the monster a little bit and let it wait until it's going to pay off and kind of let your mind do a lot of that work for you. A lot of people were mad about this. They wanted to get to that Godzilla goodness right away. That's a fair point, especially if you're a fan of Godzilla movies. You want to get to that Godzilla fighting. I'm with you on that. I don't disagree with you on that. But I appreciate what Gareth was trying to do there. I think that it works very well. The human drama aspect of it might be a little on the thin side, but when Godzilla's there, none of that matters anymore. It really works really, really well. This is, of course, far superior to that Matthew Broderick Godzilla that came out a few years earlier in the 90s. far superior to that. I do have a big affection for the original Godzilla from the 50s and some of the other Toho Godzilla movies. Those are, for the most part, out of scope of the horror movie syllabus. So that's why we're picking this one here. I mentioned King Kong earlier in the video too. You'll note that I didn't put King Kong here, either the Peter Jackson version or Kong Skull Island. Peter Jackson version, overly long, so that's why it's not going to get recommendation, but it is actually a good movie. It just could use an hour cut out of it. And Kong Skull Island is great, but again, also really actiony. And I pushed the Godzilla button over the King Kong version. I was only going to pick one of them, so I picked Godzilla over King Kong. So I guess I'm showing my hand on where I land on the Godzilla versus Kong movie that's coming out right now. But Godzilla great, Kong Skull Island great too. So I guess I'm kind of recommending both of them. But if you haven't seen Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, check it out. Now the sequel, Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is again why he had to make the list somehow, the King of the Monsters title. That movie is subpar. Now it gives you all that monster fighting goodness that you want, and that stuff is great. But overall, the movie is kind of a bit of a mess. It doesn't work as well for me, so bear that in mind. But that original Godzilla really well. I'm hyped for the Godzilla vs. King Kong. Check out Kong Skull Island. Giant monsters, you can't get better than King Kong and Godzilla. Those two are the best. So if you haven't seen those, check them out. And let us know if you're a fan of Godzilla or King Kong. And let us know who you're rooting for, Godzilla or King Kong, in that upcoming Versus movie. So that's going to do it for Giant Monsters. Hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I have. Hopefully you're a fan of Giant Monsters. And if you haven't seen some of these movies, hopefully you check them out. Hoping you check out The Host. I love that movie. Let us know in the comments below what your opinions are on Giant Monsters, and let us know, especially if I've left some out that you think should have been mentioned here. I know that there are other giant monsters that might pop up in other parts of the horror movie syllabus, but for the most part, they should have been showing up here. So if I didn't mention something, by all means, bring it up in the comments below. I've really appreciated you guys with your suggestions. Sometimes you bring up the movies that are pre-syllabus, the classic movies. I love that too. And if you're not part of the community down in the comments, get involved. Chime in, let us know what you think, and read those comments, because people are mentioning excellent examples. So the comments are definitely something you guys should be checking out if you haven't been doing it already. With that, I want to thank you guys very much for your participation. You guys bring a lot of joy to me with your comments and by subscribing and everything that you guys have been doing and supporting the channel. Thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate that. With that, let's call it a day. Class dismissed.